Make It Right, the manufacturing podcast.
Oftentimes, we don't know what we can do until we really have to do it. This week on the Make It Right podcast, it's the story of a manufacturing plant that turned a rapid COVID pivot when the need arose. Prior to the pandemic, this plant was producing colored sheets for the creation of shower, bath, and RV panels. But as demand dropped off, so did production. In the span of just a few months, this 24/7 plant had to reduce its workforce by 65%. And then opportunity knocked. There was high demand for clear acrylic to produce the barriers we see in stores everywhere. So with a significant plant conversion to a totally different process, the company is now busier than ever and has since seen a near 40% growth in employment. I'm Janet Eastman, and this week on the Make It Right podcast, I'm pleased to have Gary Buckland, the Senior Plant Manager of Spartech in Paulding, Ohio, share his business turnaround story. Welcome to the show, Gary. You have had a wild ride over the last 8 months, haven't you?
Yes, we have, and thank you for having me on today.
My pleasure. So explain just what Spartech does. I've kind of given a bit of a brief overview, but explain what it was actually doing prior to COVID-19.
Yeah, here in Paulding, we call it opaque or solid color materials. I know in your opening you mentioned RV industry is very big for us. We do refrigeration, bathtub shower surrounds, pool steps, agriculture, marine products. So we don't really make end products. We actually produce plastic sheet that other people use to make and to turn into final products.
Okay, so how did COVID impact prior to deciding to make this pivot? Now, I talked about the company layoffs, I guess they weren't layoffs so much as just people couldn't come to work. So how did it affect you guys, prior to this pivot?
Yeah, it was quite a bit. I mean, part of our business was deemed vital, so we could keep some of our operations going. And about 35% of our workforce continued to work, or 65% was we had to put them on furlough, just because, again, when you shut the overall economy down, all those industries shut down as well, so there was no need for our product. So, as a result, we had to follow suit when orders dried up, and we had to furlough people at the time. So, this would have been mid-March and to April. And actually it's about mid-May when we started on this path that we're currently on.
So tell me about the key challenges that you had to face when you made this adjustment to produce this clear acrylic in large quantities. There was a plant conversion, you had to get people back to work, you've got social distancing. Just paint that scenario for me.
Sure. Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. Probably the biggest thing to do was everybody's mindset. Initially, as our volume dropped here in Paulding, Spartech has 14 plants across North America, and we have several plants that produce clear acrylic materials. Well, with a spike in sales that they were seeing, or need for the sheet, they could not produce enough. So that's when they put the challenge out and just saying, hey, is this something Paulding could run? And, again, so I challenged my people. So the first thing was their mindset. For 50 years, this plant's been running these opaque or colored products. And now to say, hey, we're going to run clear, totally different product and totally different process. So the mindset was the first one. But with the economy being where it was and so many people on furlough, the team here knew that, this was a huge opportunity for us. So everybody pulled together. Our maintenance team did an amazing job. Production people got everybody together, and that's what we had to do. We had to start and look at our current process to say, okay, when you do solid colors, a lot of things are hidden. Like you don't see little scratches or little things because it's hidden by the color. When you're doing clear sheet, your whole process from beginning to end, has to be, scuff-free, scratch-free. You can't have any defects in this stuff. So it was a big mindset from what we currently do. So then that's when we had to start looking at our processes and figure out, melt flows are different, the way it melts, it heats, processing characteristics. We had to learn all of that, and we were able to do it within a 2-week time span. So it wasn't easy, a lot of long days, long nights, but it took us about 2 weeks to get the first line up and running.
So did you actually have to get different equipment in or anything like that?
Yeah, we were able to use the majority of our current equipment, but we had to make a lot of modifications to our current processes. So, and that's what we did. It took us the first few days to really sit down and identify the changes we had to make. And then, of course, I had to get with corporate, bring up, capital requirements, investments we had to make. Most of the items, actually, our in-house maintenance team was able to build and convert or to modify. And that's how we were able to get such a quick turnaround, was just the flexibility that we were able to have due to the skill set that we have in our, maintenance and production people.
Hmm. And I guess you had to rely quite heavily on the expertise of those people that perform these processes and who really understand them well, because they're the ones who are going to make or break it, whether it works for you or not, right?
Yeah, so, and what we were able to do is, and again, this is the nice thing about, being a part of a bigger company, we were able to reach out. So we took our experienced operators here and we got on the phone, had a lot of conference calls with some of our sister plants around, one of them in Cape Girardeau that makes this sheet. And they were able to, by talking or sharing best practices, here's what works for them. They were kind of able to help guide and direct us. And then, so we took their learnings and kind of worked with our operators. And that's how we were able to, I guess, kind of do some best practice sharing to help us out. So that made the journey a little bit easier for us.
Hmm. And I guess, you know what, if you didn't have to do the social distancing, it would have been very easy for somebody from that plant to fly and see you and be there on hand and say, this is how we get this done and whatever. But when you're having to do it through conference calls and things like that, it just added another layer of difficulty, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. That was the biggest struggle because, to your point, if this would have been any other time, people would have been in a car driving here or flying here. We could have went there, had our people work with their people. But with the COVID and everything being in lockdown, we weren't able to do that. So a lot of phone calls. Our people, the 35% that was working here, were already kind of getting used to all the COVID challenges. We're taking temperatures every day, wearing masks, and little things people don't think about, especially when working in a hot factory, is you wear a mask, but you get out in the plant and your glasses steam up, so how do you work around that? Okay, well, now we need anti-fog glasses. And I mean, just one thing creates another issue, which creates another. So a lot of things going on, all the social distancing, disinfecting we had to do. We actually purchased our own fogger to help disinfect. All kinds of just little things that added to the complexity of this challenge.
Hmm. I'm curious to know how quickly you rolled people back into employment through this, because like you say, you got to get them reintroduced to the new process. You've got to get them used to the social distancing practices. It's not like it would have been typically where you just say, okay, everybody back to work. So how were you in that 2-week period able to bring everybody back, or was this a bit of a longer drawn process?
Yeah, we had to drag it out a little bit longer. It took us about 2 weeks to get the first line converted. And then since then, we've done 2 other lines. So each line takes about 2 weeks for us to convert. So it was basically over a 6-week process. But each time we got a line coming, we'd bring, a group of people back. And then to your point, so the very first thing is, introducing them to all the COVID checks and changes that have come around from there, social distancing. We put yellow tape around the plant on where the people to stand, to give you the 6 foot. We changed things too. We bought everybody radios out the plant. That way they can talk and communicate through the radios versus having to talk face to face. And a lot of what we did from a disinfecting and cleaning process, we developed 6S cards. So we took that same concept and rolled it into COVID. So every position has their own COVID 6S card. It's a checklist of different things they've got to clean every day or every shift, which includes even, I just mentioned the radios. Before you do a shift transfer, you got to disinfect your radios. So all those little things, we tried building it into our process. That way, when the people come back, they had a kind of a follow these instructions, and made it a little bit easier, kind of give them checklists to do until, again, you do it for a while and start remembering, all the changes you have to make.
So you mentioned that it's quite hot in your plant. Give me I mean, for somebody who is not in the manufacturing industry in this way, give me a picture of what it looks like in the plant so I can understand some of the safety challenges that you may face, because I know you guys have huge safety practices. So just paint that picture for me.
Yeah, just like from a heat standpoint, typically in a lot of manufacturing plants, but ours specifically, because these are big machines. We're melting pellets down, forming into a molten material. So as a result, we're generating a lot of heat. So our plant is typically 15 degrees, maybe 20, depending on the days, hotter than the outside. So when it's 80, 85 degrees outside, it's 100, 105 inside the plant. So that adds to it. And then when you say, okay, now with COVID, you have to wear masks, it's compounding the problem for the people. And that's something, people have to get used to. I mean, everybody understood, very little complaining. Everybody understands with this pandemic, there's changes that have to happen, but again, it just adds to the complexity.
Mm-hmm. And the level of heat in there, are there best practices that you have for keeping an eye on people's temperatures even without COVID?
Yes, and we do that. We talk to our people. We built cooling rooms, so if people start getting too hot, they can walk in, cool off. And we supply our people free water, so they're able to take water breaks. We buy fresh fruit so they can, try to cool down. So we increase break frequencies, and so we're doing all that all the time. Just from an overheating standpoint, of course, taking temperatures. Everybody does that when they first come in. You can't come into the plant without getting your temperature taken first, but then throughout the day, we try monitoring, people's progress. We've got people walk up and down the lines, just, again, just trying to be as helpful as we can. And to, again, it helps promote teamwork, really.
Mm-hmm. So I mentioned at the start of the podcast that you've actually brought everybody back to work, and then you've now had to add, because you're so busy, you've added up to 40% to your workforce. So what's the challenge like trying to bring new people into a brand new environment in a COVID situation and get them trained up and get them to work and find them too?
That's right. There's definitely during this time there's plenty of challenges. So again, you just keep adding it on. So with that growth, so as the economy started opening back up, our normal business came back. Well, on top of that, we're trying to produce all this COVID material, and continuing to do that. So that's what is resulting in the additional hiring. So this area that we're in Northwest Ohio typically has very low unemployment. Pre-COVID, it was like 2.7%, so it was very low. Of course, with the COVID, it spiked up. So we did a lot of advertising. We do social media advertising, doing some billboards, newspapers. We have signs posted out in the plant. Early on, a bit of a struggle. Toward the end of July, I just think with the way things were happening, from a government standpoint, it started opening up. People started coming out applications. So we've now filled most of our spots. We've only got a few openings left. So hiring has gotten easier in the last few weeks.
So when you look at the big picture, and we don't know how long this COVID thing is going to last, but you say you're seeing demand for your original products coming back, but you've converted 2 or 3 lines to making clear acrylic. How are you how do you manage it all? Like you must have a significant growth, and I think you're operating 24/7, so you can't add any more hours.
Yeah, it's adding additional lines. So our line utilization rates are really going up, to your point. Right now, again, it's hard to see what's going on out in the market. We do see some cancellation of orders as some school districts. So schools are a big one that we're taking a lot of clear acrylic sheet. As they shut down and go online, there might be some areas canceling orders, but then we're seeing others, placing new orders. So it's kind of a little bit of a push-pull. We're seeing some cancellations, but then we're seeing, other orders go in. So, again, we don't know that this is ever really going to go away. I think with a lot of these barriers, a lot of businesses are just, understanding that these are good practices to have, probably even after COVID. So we think there will be additional, sales moving forward beyond what there was, just because, again, you never know when the next pandemic's going to happen. So I think a lot of businesses will continue to protect their people.
Mm-hmm. This is probably going to be a bit of a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We've never faced anything like this before. So I'm assuming, though, that in your career, you've had to get creative and rethink how you do production or processes or business in the past. But how challenging was this? You must have had some sleepless nights.
Yes, that's a, that's a good way to put it. Overall, we are heavily into lean concepts. So we do a lot of quick changeovers, TPM, just different Kaizen events, driving continuous improvement. Because today's day and age, anybody working in manufacturing, you have to drive the improvement day in and day out. But typically, it's small changes all the time. This COVID has really led to dramatic changes. Again, thinking outside the box, trying things you've never tried before, in order to survive. And when done properly, it's the type of thing that, again, I'm so proud of our team. I tell everybody, I don't take any credit. This is all on the people that work here in Paulding that figured this out. They did a wonderful job, and as a result, hey, we got all of our coworkers back to work, and we're helping the community by creating even more jobs. And the most important part is we're protecting or producing a product that's protecting people from this disease, around the country. So, in a way, we're helping save lives. So that's kind of how we're looking at it. So yeah, there's always some change, but nothing like we've seen in the past 3 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm. And so the attitude at work, people are feeling pretty positive, and the culture feels good there.
Oh yeah, we've got a great group of people, great team. So that part of it, of course, like anything else, there's growing pains that you have when you grow this fast, this quick. Again, we'll never say we're perfect, but we work through problems as a team or as a group. We're driving the improvement. Every day's getting better. You got all these new people. You mentioned earlier, not only they got to learn all the safety practices we have in place, but the quality of the product, how things were learned. So there's a lot of learning going on all 4 shifts. So again, it'll take us, but every week it's a little bit better as people gain more experience, and we're looking forward to what's going to happen over the next few weeks and few months.
Mm-hmm. We're certainly not going to forget 2020, are we?
This will be a happy new year when this year is over with.
Exactly. So, Gary, just for manufacturers that are out there, you've been through this process. It's been successful for you. You've learned a lot. There's still a lot of growing pains ahead. What are some key takeaways that you can leave with people, or insights that you've gained for other manufacturing leaders you can share?
The biggest thing is don't be afraid to try things. When I first went to my team and I mentioned this clear acrylic, I have a lot of managers that have been here, 30, 40, over 45 years. And they're like, well, we've never done that. We can't do that. And so again, the main thing is sometimes maybe even on desperation, I guess it makes us think things differently. So don't be afraid to try things you haven't tried before. Push yourselves and challenge each other, but again, do it as a team on what we can do differently to spin it. So again, yeah, we went from probably one of the worst years we were going to be having as a business to now one of the best, and continuing to grow. And again, most importantly, it's not about the business. It's how can we help society as a whole and help people out during this difficult time.
Mm-hmm. Gary, it's a great story. Congratulations on your success with Spartech, and congratulations to the team in Paulding. And thanks so much for sharing your story with us on Make It Right.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and hope all is well with everyone. And hopefully we all get through this over the next couple of months and get back to a little bit of normalness. That would be great.
I'm with you when you said this is going to be a happy new year when we kick into 2021. So thanks again, Gary.
Thank you. Bye.
Gary Buckland is with Spartech. He is the senior plant manager at their plant in Paulding, Ohio. That is our show this week. Please check out our Twitter and LinkedIn feeds that you'll find on our podcast page, and you can subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. The Make It Right podcast is brought to you by Kevin Snook. He's a leadership advisor and author of the best-selling book, Make It Right. 5 steps to align your manufacturing business from the front line to the bottom line. I'm Janet Eastman. Until next time, thanks for listening to Make It Right.